British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is on a two-day long visit to India. He's of course expected to meet his counterpart, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, later in the day today in the national capital, New Delhi. This of course has come after Boris Johnson announced some commercial agreements worth a staggering $1.3 billion on Thursday. The new investments and export deals announced were in areas ranging from software engineering to auto manufacturing to health. To give an idea of the kind of commercial agreements signed, the deals range from research and development centres being opened up to the sale of robotic surgical systems in India. Meanwhile, these are live visuals that are coming in, where the British Prime Minister will be given a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Alright, so we expect the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to in fact arrive at the Rashtrapati Bhavan pretty much any moment now. Remember, this of course is a very important meeting and a very important visit by the British Prime Minister to India. He was of course to come twice before, but those visits got stalled because of the COVID-19 pandemic and also because of the sharp surge in the number of infections. But Boris Johnson is here. He was of course yesterday in the Indian state of Gujarat. And today, this morning, he is at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. There we see the British Prime Minister. He's being received by the Indian Prime Minister. The two shake hands. And this is a crucial visit by the British Prime Minister, who's of course meeting with the Indian Prime Minister. The two nations will of course be taking their strategic partnership forward. And this is the ceremonial reception that is being accorded to the British Prime Minister. So this, of course, is the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson being accorded a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And, of course, the day ahead is going to be a very busy one, where the British Prime Minister, of course, will have a one-to-one conversation with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the British High Commission, in its statement, it said that Boris Johnson will be using this visit to drive the progress in the free trade agreement negotiations that were launched earlier this year, as the deal with India is, of course, predicted to boost the United Kingdom's total trade of almost about £28 billion annually by the year 2035. So it's going to be a packed day ahead for the British Prime Minister, who's of course in New Delhi this morning. He was in Ahmedabad yesterday. And the British Prime Minister will have a series of meetings in the day with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his counterpart, and also with other top leaders in the government. Remember, India by Britain has been identified as a priority relationship back in a 2021 integrated review, and it was also invited by the United Kingdom as a guest to last year's G7 in the Carbis Bay. What is interesting is that the trade between India and the United Kingdom, the target which the British wish to set will be almost about £28 billion annually by the year 2035. And if this were to be achieved, then the incomes across the United Kingdom will, of course, go up by almost about £3 billion. So this, of course, is a crucial relationship that the British Prime Minister is, of course, trying to pursue. Let's listen in to what's, in fact, going to be said.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be here in Delhi this morning with my friend Prime Minister Modi, and thank you for the fantastic welcome that you've given us, Narendra. This is, I think, a very auspicious moment in a relationship and a friendship between two democracies, the world's largest democracy in India, the UK, one of the world's oldest democracies, and I don't think that things have ever been as strong or as good between us as they are now. So thank you for the wonderful reception that you've given us. It was amazing. I want to say particularly to the people of Gujarat. We had, I mean, they put on a most fantastic welcome for us yesterday, Narendra. It was absolutely extraordinary. I've never seen such a joyful reception. I wouldn't get that necessarily everywhere in the world, but it was absolutely fantastic to come and see your own home state for the first time. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
All right, so that was the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson there in his remarks, stating that it was a fantastic and such a joyful welcome that he was accorded in the Prime Minister's home state of Gujarat. And Boris Johnson being candid that he perhaps may not be accorded such a welcome in other places, joking about it. And this, remember, is a very crucial visit for Britain as it is seeking to expand on the bilateral relationship between India and the United Kingdom. Boris Johnson also reiterated about the close historical linkages between India and Britain, stating that India, of course, is the world's largest democracy and the United Kingdom happens to be one of the world's oldest democracies and a functioning one. And this, of course, is a important moment. We see another handshake there. So far, we haven't seen any hugs. That could be because of COVID protocols. But the Indian Prime Minister is, of course, known for what is known as the hugging diplomacy, where he builds remarkable rapport with some of the top world leaders because of the connection that he strikes with them. And this of course, is going to be an important, strategically relevant relationship, considering the manner in which how things are changing and evolving in the world. And also, especially in the aftermath of Brexit, Britain is, of course, on the lookout for newer markets to go on and trade. And a free trade agreement between the two nations is, of course, something that Britain has been talking and negotiating about. This was the ceremonial welcome that was accorded to the British Prime Minister in New Delhi at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which has just concluded. And these are visuals from a little while back where the British Prime Minister was received by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And this, of course, is going to be a crucial and an important meeting in terms of the two nations taking ahead their several sets of cooperations in different areas such as defense, in trade, in research, in terms of security. And all of these are matters which will be discussed. Remember, yesterday the British Prime Minister was in the Indian state of Gujarat, where the British Prime Minister very candidly admitted that he had received a most incredibly joyful welcome as he had not seen anywhere before. So this, of course, is a very important visit by the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was accorded a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He was received by the Indian Prime Minister today at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And this is an important relationship for both for India and also for the United Kingdom. And Boris Johnson personally and politically is in a lot of trouble back home in Britain. Remember, there is this investigation against him for holding lockdown parties at a time when the rest of Britain was in a state of complete and a strict lockdown. The British Prime Minister was found to be partying along with his other staff members in 10 Downing Street. But he's now here in India on a diplomatic and a bilateral visit. And this was the ceremonial welcome that was accorded to the British Prime Minister. It's going to be a busy day ahead for the British Prime Minister. He'll be holding talks with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and it remains to be seen as to how the day, of course, unfolds. So a whole different aspects is where the relationship will be taken into in terms of health, in creating jobs both in India and indeed in Britain. And the Indian and the British businesses will, of course, see this as a great opportunity to expand further. This, remember, is a two-day visit by the British Prime Minister, where he is also going to be holding talks with the Indian Prime Minister in some time later today. And I'm told that my colleague Siddhant Sibil is joining us on this broadcast. Good morning to you, Siddhant. This, of course, is a very crucial visit by the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He's facing a lot of trouble back home, where he's, of course, being cornered over the lockdown parties. But here in India, he's on a diplomatic visit and something that is very crucial for both India and the United Kingdom.
Well, yes, Mohammed, there is a lot of worry back home for the British Prime Minister. But today, of course, is a busy day for the British Prime Minister here in Delhi. He just a short while ago spoke here at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where he was given a ceremonial welcome. And standing alongside the Indian Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister talked about the relationship, saying it's an auspicious moment for the relationship, and also talking about his visit to Gujarat, saying that he's not sure that he'll get such welcome anywhere in the world. Might be a sarcastic comment, but also shows the domestic pressure he has been facing back home. But largely today will be a long day. In a short while from now, he will be sitting with the Indian Prime Minister at Hyderabad House, where the focus will be on Indo-Pacific, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, worries over other global geopolitics, but also on trade, given that both India and UK are keen for a free trade agreement as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Now, we've seen a whole host of foreign leaders who, in fact, come to India, Siddhant, over the course of the last few weeks, especially in the aftermath of this Russian invasion into Ukraine. Now, is this something that is likely to come up for talks when the two prime ministers meet later this afternoon?
Well, Mohammed, he is the first European leader to visit New Delhi since the Russian invasion of Ukraine on 24th of February, and this is something that will be a major focus area. We know that in every European capital, this is the biggest worry, and no doubt he's going to raise the issue. But as the British government has been saying that they're not going to lecture the Indian side on their policy on Ukraine. We know that India have a good relationship, the relationship that continues with Moscow, with London and with Washington, and it is carefully balancing that relationship while abstaining at the United Nations resolutions and meetings, but also condemning what has happened in Bucha, Ukraine. But the British government is also saying just before the talks happen that is going to give its own perspective, and it is going to hear what New Delhi has to say during the meeting that happens between the two prime ministers. But undoubtedly, this is the biggest worry, and today there will be a substantial focus on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but also a re-emphasis from both sides to make sure that this relationship continues, whether it's trade, whether it's Indo-Pacific, or whether it is people-to-people relationship that forms the bedrock of this very strong relationship.
Absolutely indeed, Siddhant Sibil. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and getting us all those updates. We'll of course come back to you as more details emerge in this story. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.